The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today for our webinar with special guest Pamela Wilson. Today, we're going to be talking about content marketing and how to hit publish and build profits with content marketing. Before we do that, we just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping so we can make sure everyone can hear us okay. As I'm sure you know, many of us are, or everybody here is actually working from home today, and so we're hoping all technology works for us so we can get this great information out to you today. But if you can hear me speaking at this moment, you should be able to see a little raise your hand functionality on the right side of your screen in the GoToWebinar tools. If you wouldn't mind just raising that hand for me so I know that you can hear me. Let's take a look here, see if we got any hands going up. All right, looks like I got a couple hands over there. Thank you so much, Alice, Allison, Amy, thank you. Anna, great. Okay, so it looks like people can hear. Awesome. If for some reason you have any technical difficulties, most of those can be handled by logging out and logging back in if something does happen to happen. If for some reason you're still having trouble and can't get back in, or you can't hear something, or there's some other type of technical issue, please call that number on your screen. Feel free to jot this down. It's 855-352-9002, and that is the number for the GoToWebinar help desk, and they should be able to help you figure out or troubleshoot anything that's going on. In case you're wondering, the webinar or today's session is being recorded, so you'll be able to get that information if for some reason you get knocked out or have any issues. You'll be able to watch that. We'll send that out to you after the webinar a little later, so you'll be able to be able to watch that on your own time as well, or rewatch it. Also, if you have any questions, do send them in. You can click on the little questions icon there, little chat icon, to send in your questions. We have people in the background actually monitoring those questions and then putting things together, so we'll do some Q&A at the end. With that, I think, Pamela, you can kick us over to the next screen there if you wanted, and I can mention that. I also wanted to mention everybody to, again, thank you for being here today. We know we're in a kind of unprecedented time right now, and just wanted to let you know that in these challenging times that we here at Constant Contact are here to help, and we've actually created a small business support kit that the link there is on the screen, and I'll try to type that into the chat window so people can navigate to that. But we've put together some resources, including some things to do in terms of action plans and how to contact somebody and a helpline and all of that other stuff for people navigating this crisis that's happening. So again, with that, I'll share a link to that in the window. But with that, I would like to turn it over to Pamela Wilson. Pamela, thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thank you so much, Dave. I am thrilled to be here, and I just want to welcome everyone and thank you so much for making the time to be here today. We're going to be talking about content marketing, and the presentation is called How to Hit Publish and Build Profits with Content Marketing. I'm going to show you how to reach those perfect customers by offering valuable, engaging information over time. And the beautiful thing about content marketing, especially right now, is that content marketing really comes from a place of service. So you can step up and be there for your customers and give them valuable, useful information. And today I'm going to show you how to do that with a simple system that's going to help you create high quality content faster. And to introduce myself, my name is Pamela Wilson, like Dave said. I'm the author of 2 best-selling books on content marketing, Master Content Marketing and Master Content Strategy. I'm the former Executive Vice President of Educational Content for Copyblogger, which is an industry-leading content marketing resource on the web. And you may know me as the founder of Big Brand System. I started Big Brand System in 2010. So my site is 10 years old this year. And I want to let you know that I still remember what it felt like to look at that big blank blog section on my website and know that I needed to fill my blog with information and that somehow that information was going to magically attract an audience to my business. And to be honest, it kind of makes me break out in a sweat just thinking about how daunting that whole thing felt. So if that's what you're feeling today when you think about content marketing, I want you to know that I am with you and I know how that feels. I have not forgotten how that feels. I started planning this workshop with the Constant Contact team way back in January. And I don't know about you, but January feels like it was not 3 months ago. It feels like it was 3 years ago. If that's how you're feeling, I would love to know. You can just tell me in chat. You can just type in a Y for yes. Does January feel like 3 months ago? Just say Y. And if it doesn't, then say N. I would love to know that as well. But things were very different when we initially started talking about this workshop. And you might wonder if content marketing even matters anymore, or you may not fully understand what content marketing is or how you can use it for your business. So let's clear that up first, just to make sure that we all understand what it is. Okay, and by the way, I'm seeing a lot of yeses, a lot of yeses, a lot of exclamation marks, a lot of heck yeses. So yeah, January just feels like a lifetime ago to me. So we're kind of in a different place, but content marketing, I'm going to show you why I think it's going to be a helpful force right now. So what is content marketing? My definition of content marketing is that it is helpful information that's published regularly. It can come in different formats. It can be written, it can be audio or video. It's hosted on your website generally, but it's promoted with email marketing and social media marketing. And that's important because the idea is we are sending people back to your home base on the internet where you are hosting your content. And we're using things like email marketing and social media marketing to do that. I believe that content marketing matters right now more than ever before. And I think really that this is your moment to use content marketing. There are a lot of people out there who have extra time on their hands because businesses are closed or events have been canceled. And you know, a lot of folks are passing the time watching Netflix, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have no judgment against that. I've done it myself, so I get that. But one way to think about this time is that it's a moment when you can not just consume content, you can create content. I think this is a fantastic moment to step up and be a leader and to share hope. And content marketing can help you to do that. It can help you to share valuable information with a level of skill and clarity and also compassion, because we need extra compassion with our fellow human beings right now, right? So content marketing can help you to communicate clearly and help your audience. And I'm ready to start working on it. And I hope you are too, because I have a lot to cover today. So I do want to ask you a favor before I dive deep into this. I want to ask you if you could please turn off anything that might be distracting you right now. If you have made the time to be here and to watch this presentation, it's likely because you need it. And I want to be able to deliver the full value that I have for you today. I also want to ask you to grab something to write with. We are going to move fast. So if you have a pen and paper, or you can open up a blank document, that will really help because you'll just be able to jot things down as I go over them. I do have a free course for you. I'm going to share the details about that toward the end of the presentation, but some of the things I'm going to go over very quickly today, you'll be able to get more detail about in that free course. So stay tuned for that. All right, if you are here live, I have some questions for you, so warm up your fingers. I want you to answer these questions in chat. First of all, I would love to know if you are using content marketing right now, and you can just, we're going to make this very easy. Just type Y for yes, I'm using content marketing, or N for no, I am not using content marketing. Just give me the answer. I would love to know if you're actually using content marketing. And I'm seeing a mix right now. I'm seeing some no's and some yeses. Some people are just starting. So people are maybe using it somewhat, but I'm seeing kind of a mix. So that's great to know. So one thing I want to know is, have you ever wished that you could just publish the right exact content that you need right when you need it? I would love to know if that sounds like something you would like. Seeing lots of yeses. Lots of yeses. Okay, great. And some people are wondering what that means. So that's good. We're going to go over that. We're going to go over all those details. And then here's the last question. You can't just type Y or N for this one. You'll have to give me a few words, but I would love to know what you think has stopped you so far. If you answered, no, I'm not using content, or maybe I'm just starting, or I really don't understand it, what has stopped you? I would love to know, what do you feel like is holding you back? So let's see. I think I need a definition of content marketing. So Wendy, we went over that. Content marketing is publishing consistent information for an audience of people. It's helping people. By the time we get to the end of this presentation, you're going to understand it in a lot more detail if you're still trying to define it in your own mind. I am seeing, so a lot of people are saying, I don't really understand it, or I don't have enough time. A lot of people are saying time management. So I'm really glad you're here, because a lot of what I'm going to talk about is how to get this done in less time. So I'm wondering if this sounds like you. You want to be able to create content marketing without worrying that you're leaving something out, or you're doing it wrong, which is some of what I saw in chat, that you don't have a strategy, you're not sure what you're doing. I'm also wondering if you've tried to publish content. Some people said they have, but you don't really have any kind of plan for it. And in the end, maybe you published something, but it didn't do much for you. So if that's you, I'm going to help you out today. And I also wonder if you wish that creating content marketing felt kind of easy and natural, and you wish you knew how to publish content that would lead to profits. I am obsessed with that part of it. So we're going to talk a lot about that today, about how to link the content you create to profitable things that you're doing in your business. So this is what you're going to learn today. We're going to talk about a holistic process for creating profitable content marketing easily, even if you're not a writer, because I don't consider myself a writer either. We'll talk about how you can support yourself as a content creator, and you're going to learn a process that honors your time and your energy, and it also leads to better results with your content marketing. We'll talk about how to quickly snap together effective content marketing that works. As I said, you don't have to be a writer to make this work. And we'll talk about how to connect your content marketing efforts directly to your revenue goals. I'm going to show you my PS method. Very easy to remember, and I think you'll understand it by the time we finish. I want to share just a little bit about me so that you understand how I learned what I'm about to teach you. 10 years ago, back in 2010, I was at this point in my career where I felt like I could earn a living with one eye closed. I had it figured out. I had a design studio. I had complete mastery over the challenges in my business. I was 100% confident that I knew how to earn a great living with what I was doing. The business newspaper in my region selected me for their 20 under 40 issue. My local paper put me on the front of their Sunday business section. I was doing great. I was turning away clients, and I felt like nothing could stop me. But of course, that's when we get antsy, right? So I started having this feeling like I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to build something online. But the problem was that up until then, every business connection I had was a real connection in real life, not virtual. And I knew that if I wanted to build a group of customers online, I was going to have to create a lot of content online in order to reach them. So I struggled a lot with this, and it was mostly because I was not a writer. I felt completely unqualified for writing something. When it came to writing, I went from feeling 100% confident to feeling 0% confident. And then the second reason was that I just didn't know how I could find time to create content. And a lot of you have said the same thing. I don't have time to do this. And the third reason was that I couldn't quite figure out how to connect content marketing with revenue. I knew it was supposed to lead to revenue, but I didn't quite know how that was supposed to work. And then I didn't know what to create content about. I didn't know what to write about, what to create helpful content about. So, what happened back in 2010 and in the ensuing years is that I finally figured out this method that worked for creating content. And it allowed me, the non-writer, to consistently create these really strong pieces of content marketing. And I remember saying to a friend, I think I figured out this content marketing thing. I'm thinking about sharing what I figured out with other people. And my early content was strong enough that my work ended up being accepted by one of the best known blogs in the world. You've probably seen this blog, Constant Contact. Content marketing has opened so many doors for me. It's created revenue for my business. It's allowed me to reach hundreds of thousands of people with my information, and it's gotten me invited to speak on big stages and on very important podcasts, for example. Content marketing has built my business big brand system from a brand new site back in 2010 to the business it is today. And more importantly, it brought you here today, because if it wasn't for the content I created over the years, I would not have this connection with Constant Contact. I would not have been invited to teach you today. When you know how to create content and you step out with confidence and you publish it and you get your voice out into the world, amazing things happen. The right people show up. Those people want what you offer, and they happily pay you for it. And this is what I want for you. And there's something else. It's a little harder to put into words, but learning this new skill gave me so much confidence as a person. I feel confident as a writer now. I feel confident as a speaker, and I feel confident as a presenter, even when there are thousands of people listening like today. Learning how to master content marketing has been life-changing. And today I'm the author of 2 best-selling books on the content marketing topic. And people seem to like the way I teach this. So I'm very excited to be able to share some of what I figured out live with you today. So I want you to imagine what would happen in your business if you had a plan for the content you want to create, and you could map out your plan to a promotional calendar so that your content leads to revenues. When you know exactly what to write and when to publish it, and you have a method for getting that content created that makes it feel easy, that makes it even feel fun. That's really what we're aiming for today. So where do we start? Well, step 1 is to build a supportive environment for your content creation efforts. What we want to do is support you as the content creator with a process that honors your time and your energy and leads to better results. So I just want you to take a moment and recognize that you are a person and you have a life, and creating content is probably an add-on that you're trying to fit into your schedule, and your schedule is already pretty full. And I get that. So what I recommend you do is you set up what I call a content creation station. And this is literally a place in your office, in your home. Maybe it's a local coffee shop. Once we're allowed to go out to our local coffee shops again, you set up a physical location where you can create content, and you think hard about what will help you feel supported in that location. So, do you want to sit? Do you want to stand? Do you want to work in a dark room? Do you want to work in a room that has a lot of natural light? Do you want complete silence or do you need some background noise, for example? You want to think closely about where you do your best creative work, what time of day it's easiest for you to be creative, for example, and just notice the environment where you do your best work and then set yourself up for success in that location. And what happens is if you always create your content from that same spot, when you go to that place, your brain is going to know that it's content creation time. So it's going to help you to get into that mode of creating content. And I have to tell you one thing, it is so much easier to create content if you don't try to do it all at the same time. So you don't try to sit down and do it in one single block of time. What I recommend instead is that you spread the work out over several days. And that's why I developed my 4-day content creation system. And to use it, what I want you to do is to start by asking yourself, what day of the week do I want to publish a new piece of content? So let's say that you are going to publish once a week. You're going to put out a new blog post or a new video or a new podcast episode once a week. So what you want to do is work backward from the day that you want to publish and then assign specific days of the week to the tasks that I'm just about to outline. So for example, let's say that you want to publish on Thursdays. So Thursday is day 4 of the 4-day content creation system. Day 3 is going to be Wednesday, day 2 is going to be Tuesday, and day 1 is Monday. So you figure out your publication day and you work backward. And let's see what you're going to do on each of these days. So on day 1, what I want to ask you to do is build what I call your content backbone. And what you do to create a content backbone is, first of all, you pick your topic. So you figure out what you're going to create content around. And then you write a really strong headline and you write some subheads. Now, if you don't know what subheads are, I want you to tell me in chat because I will go into more detail if you're not sure what that is. But a headline is basically the line at the very top of your piece of content. It's the title of your blog post, it's the title of your podcast episode or the title of the video that you are publishing. And it ends up being almost like an ad that goes out on the internet that tells people what your piece of content is about. So your headline is super, super important. To write a really great headline, one of the best tips that I can give you is to just write a lot of headlines. Write them. I normally write about 20 headlines before I come to the one that I end up using. The first headlines tend to not be that great, and then as you go along, they get better. So write a lot of headlines. And then you want to create some subheads, and subheads are like miniature headlines that appear in the text that break up the text into different sections and that help people to understand what is there within your piece of content. So I have to tell you, this content backbone, once you have a headline and you have some subheads, you've got kind of a structure that you will use to hang the rest of your words on or the rest of your content on. It's almost like creating an outline, but I don't like to call it an outline because we all have these images of our middle school English class when the teacher made us create all these outlines. So we'll just call it a content backbone. It's your headline and your subhead. So you're thinking about your content, you're building some kind of structure, and that's all you have to do on the first day. Once you've done these things, you can walk away, take a break, give your brain some time to think about your content, and just go about the rest of your day. Then we have day 2 of the 4-day content creation system. This is the day that you're going to do the majority of your content creation. You're going to be doing more writing this day. If you have a podcast, you'll record your podcast. If you have a video series, you'll record your video this day. It's the day you're creating a first draft. And my best advice about your first draft is to aim to just get it done. Because in this 4-day content creation system, we have a whole day that's devoted to polishing and editing and making your content better. So the worst thing that you can do on day 2 is to try to write and edit at the same time. I want you to really avoid that. Just create a messy first draft so that you have something to polish and edit on day 3. Just get it done. Write as quickly as you can and get it finished. For a piece of written content, one thing that people ask me all the time, and I've already seen the question in chat, is how long should the content be? So I generally say to aim for between 1,000 and 1,500 words, with 1,250 being the average. You want to create enough words that Google and all of the search engines see your piece of content as an authoritative piece of content. And you just have to have enough words in there in order to do that. But you also maybe don't want it to be so long that people take one look at it and say, I don't have time to read this. So that's why I usually recommend between 1,000 and 1,500 words. So day 3, what happens on day 3? Day 3 is when you edit. You polish and you prepare your piece of content and get it ready to publish and put out into the world. So you want to reread your first draft. You'll have fresh eyes because you haven't looked at it since yesterday. So hopefully all of the mistakes will pop right out, and you can add things that are missing. You can delete things that are redundant and you don't need them. You'll have a chance to really proofread it and polish it up. I also recommend that you format it so it's very readable. So add bulleted lists, make sure your paragraphs are short, add images if possible to help break up the text as well. Let's look at day 4. This is your final day. Now your content is created and you're going to be publishing it. So what you want to do once your content is published is start to promote it on social platforms. So put it out there so people can find it. Send it to your email list. Send an email out and let them know you have a new piece of content for them. And then set it up for ongoing promotion. And what I mean by that is you don't want to only promote it on the first day it's published. You want to promote it lots of times on the first day, keep promoting it the next day, continue to promote it that whole first week, and then set it up so that over time you are sending people back to that piece of content. The great thing about this 4-day content creation system is you can kind of leverage your calendar to do this. So here's an example from February 2020, which I think we agreed happened like 2 or 3 months ago or several years ago, I don't know. But February 2020, let's pretend that we are publishing on a Wednesday. So if it is a Wednesday, we know that that is the day that we publish new content. And on Tuesdays are the days that we polish our content and we edit it. Mondays are the days that we create our first drafts. And always on Fridays, we're creating our content backbone. So the beautiful thing about this is if you feel like you don't have time to work this into your schedule, you'll be doing the same thing on the same day of the week every single week. And you can plan this. So for example, on day 2, when you're writing your first draft, which may be your longest work session, you can plan out things so that your first draft happens on a day when you have more time available. So that's what I recommend to make content creation easier, to just figure out your publication day, break things down and do them over 4 days, and then try to support yourself by creating your content in an environment that feels great and supports your creative process. I want to know if that seems easier. So let me know in chat if that seems like an easier way to handle things. And I do see some questions. We are definitely going to have a Q&A period toward the end of this presentation. So, okay, so I'm seeing some yes. Ash Akshay is saying they might unsubscribe if they get repeated same emails. So you're not sending the same email if you're sending a new piece of content. You're sending an email that talks about a new piece of content. So as long as you're creating content that's useful and helpful, then you shouldn't get people unsubscribing. So lots of people are saying it's easier. I love this breakdown. It seems organized. It seems easy so far. I'm glad to hear that. I want to show you something else that is going to make content creation easier. And this was the big revelation that I noticed in the early years of creating content. I just saw this structure that I had never noticed before. And that's what I want to share with you in this section. If you are aware of this content structure, it will help you to create content that just, it works. You can guarantee that your content will be engaging and useful if you include the elements that I'm about to present to you. Once I saw these elements, I was able to reproduce them in my content. So, like I said, this is like the big secret to why my content was picked up by all these big websites and was seen by all these huge audiences and still is. It's because I use these essential elements that I'm about to show you. What I want to tell you is this is a part where if you haven't been taking notes, you might want to pick up your pencil and take notes on this part, because if one of these sections is missing, your content marketing may not work as content marketing. Now, I am only going to say a sentence or two about each, but as I mentioned, I have this free course that you can sign up to, and it will go into a little bit more detail. We're going to go through it quickly now, though. So the first of the 7 essential sections that I noticed in a piece of content is something we've already talked about, which is the headline. And remember that your headline is the thing that stands between your content and the click that gets someone to see your piece of content and consume it. So you want to generate a lot of ideas. You don't want to use any jargon or to try to be too clever. You want to be clear. You want to make sure you communicate in a way that is compelling. And like I said, it's an ad for your content. So you want to spend lots of time on your headline. Then we have something else. It's your first sentence. So it might seem kind of ridiculous to sweat over your first sentence, but I have to tell you, these first sections of your content are really important, because when somebody clicks on your content, they are sitting there with this is what you have to imagine, okay? People are sitting there with their hands hovering over their mouse, and they're just about to click off. So your headline and your first sentence and the next section I'm going to talk to you about, the introduction, are all designed to keep them on your piece of content so that they stay on your page and consume it. So your first sentence is really important. You want to keep people engaged. Maybe you draw them into a story that's right in progress. You just draw them into the middle of a story. Maybe you make a provocative statement so that they sit up and pay attention. You could say something that kind of builds suspense. Your goal is to pull the reader down the page and get them to consume your content with this first sentence. So spend some time on it. The next important section is the introduction section. And this is where you are continuing to build a case for your content. You want to keep it relatively short, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs at the most, but you want to make kind of a promise about what they're about to learn or what they're about to see or what they're about to experience when they stick around with your piece of content. This is another way that you're just convincing them that they should dedicate some time to your content. So we have them on the page, right? We've got them there. We've written an amazing headline, a fantastic first sentence. We've got an introduction that has completely convinced them to stay with your content. And now we go into our subheads, and we've already talked about subheads. Your subheads are a way for you to kind of work out your content structure before you write it. But after they're written and they're on your piece of content, they become these little snack-sized pieces of content that people can consume. So some people will just skim down your subheads and say, do I want to stick around with this content or not? And they'll look at your subheads, and your subheads will help them make that decision. So you want to make sure that your subheads are informative. You want them to be interesting and still really compelling. Sometimes every bit as compelling as your headline at the top of your post. Then we have what I call your main copy. And your main copy is what I call basically everything else, right? Everything that goes below the subheads is the main copy. So this is where you are telling stories, you're sharing information, sharing knowledge. You want to keep your sentences and your paragraphs short, because that's how people read online. They go through and they skim. And so you want to make sure that everything looks very inviting. And you can see in the slide I'm showing you right now, I have bulleted lists. I have a block quote, which is like a quotation, and it's a bit of copy that I've decided to highlight. I'm using bolding, and I've got very short paragraphs. So this is what you want to aim for. You don't want to present people with a big wall of unbroken text. You want it to look very inviting and open. Then we have this other section that I never saw anyone talk about, but the more I looked at really great content, I noticed that most really great content also had this section that I call the summary. And at the end of the content, it is a chance to sort of revisit what you've taught people in your content, what you've shared, the guidance that you've given them, and sort of reinforce the benefits of what they've read. So on the example I'm showing you now, I did a summary in video form. So that's something you can also do, but it doesn't have to be that elaborate. You can make a summary that is just a bulleted list. This is what we went over in this post. And I have to tell you, with the short attention spans that we all have these days, a summary can be really helpful, because the summary helps people to just reinforce what they've read. Then we have this section that sometimes people forget, but it's a call to action. And this is something where you are actually asking the person who's consumed your content to take some kind of action. It's not necessarily to buy something, but you're asking them to take the next step so that they can really act on what they have learned. So this could be something as simple as leave a comment, or share this piece of content, or subscribe, or maybe it's visit my sales page or book an appointment, something like that. A lot of people are reluctant to add a call to action to their content. And I just want to say that content that does not have some kind of call to action at the end is just content. It's not content marketing. The business benefits of content happen when you add a call to action. So the call to action is really important. I want to know if this is coming together for you. Let me know if you're starting to get how this all works. I would love to hear about this, hear about if this is starting to make sense to you. I'm seeing a yes, that's great. Okay, great. And people are getting inspired. So I love to see that. That is awesome. That's wonderful. And okay, good. Yes, yes, yes. I'm seeing lots of yes. So that's wonderful. All right. So let's talk about, I promised to show you how you can make content and revenue happen. And that's what this part of the presentation is about. This is my PS method that I mentioned at the beginning. This is the part where we talk about profits. So your content can create profit when you are strategic. So if you use your content strategically, you can meet your revenue goals. And it's not that difficult. And I have this PS method that I'm going to explain to you. It has two parts. The first part is plan. So P stands for plan. And what do I mean by plan? Well, first of all, you need to plan your promotions on a calendar. You may be doing this already, but maybe you haven't quite figured out how to plan your promotions and your content. So that's what we're going to talk about. And again, planning includes planning your promotions and then planning your content in advance. And I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like. The S part stands for seed. So what you want to do is create content around the topic of your upcoming promotion, and then you seed your content with mentions of the topic of your promotion. So this probably all seems very abstract, and I'm going to give you an example to help you to understand how this works. But the goal here is we want to get people very subtly thinking about the topic that your promotion will be hinging on well in advance. So let me show you what that looks like. Let's pretend that you have a garden center and you decide that from May 3rd through 9th, you're going to have a sale at the garden center. So in advance, you do some planning. You plan out your promotion dates on the calendar, and then you plan your content. You spend some time saying, okay, we've got the promotion 3rd through 9th of May. What are we going to do in advance? We're going to create some blog posts. Maybe we'll create some videos too. So you plan that out. And then you seed your content. So you're planning out your 4 blog posts, let's say. You start them way in advance, way back in April. Maybe you plan out 3 tutorial videos and you're going to host those on your website. And maybe you send out some emails with helpful gardening tips. So you're getting your audience to think about gardening because you have a garden center promotion coming up. Maybe it's for your vegetables. We've got some pictures of vegetables here. So maybe it's to help people start a vegetable garden. Okay, so this is our example. We're planning the promotion and we're seeding the promotion with mentions of this vegetable garden topic. Well, what happens? By the time May comes around, we've published all these blog posts about vegetable gardening. We have written social media posts and emails about vegetable gardening. We've created some videos around vegetable gardening. And look what happened in the brains of our audience. They are thinking vegetable gardening by the time our promotion comes around. So they're very open to hearing about your promotion because you've got them thinking about this topic. And now you're going to allow them to move forward and act on this topic at a sales price. So this is a wonderful way to seed the promotion and get people thinking about it in advance. Here's what it looks like on your calendar. Here we have May 3rd through 9th blocked out on the calendar. That's our plan for the promotion. And then we work backward and we create all this website content that we're publishing once a week. And it's all about vegetable gardens, for example. And then we complement that with social media and email content that is also about vegetable gardens. So you can see that people are just getting repeated exposures. And I want you to remember that not everyone will see every single thing you post. They'll only see some of it. So as long as you stay on topic and just keep talking about the same thing well in advance of the promotion, they'll be open and ready for it by the time it comes around. And you want to talk about different aspects. So for example, maybe you do a blog post about how planting a garden will help you to be healthier, and that's going to create interest in the topic. Maybe you do a blog post about why produce that's grown on a mass scale doesn't have the same nutrient value than produce that you grow at home, which, by the way, I don't even know if that's true. So, but if you find interesting data like that, you want to share it. So that would build your authority as somebody who knows something about this topic. Maybe you do a video about how to prepare your soil, and that is actionable information. It's how-to information that people will thank you for. And it also gets them thinking about preparing a garden and planting a garden. So by the time your promotion comes around, they are really open to it. What you can do is look at every quarter of the year and just figure out when your promotions are going to happen, and then work backward and make sure that all the content leading up to those promotions stays on topic, and is helpful and gives people information that will get them all primed and ready for your promotion once it comes around. And again, you've got your website content that you're putting in and getting in place so that people are thinking about the topic. So, all right, quick pop quiz. What does PS stand for? I want to see if those who are here live have been paying attention. What does PS stand for? Do you remember what PS stands for? Just drop it into chat. Plan and seed. I'm seeing lots of people. Oh, you guys really paid attention. Great. Plan and seed. That is wonderful. And I have some people asking about whether or not these approaches work for nonprofits, and they absolutely do. So instead of thinking about a revenue producing promotion, you're thinking about the promotion that your nonprofit will do. Maybe it's a membership promotion. I see someone talking about an animal shelter. Maybe it's an adoption promotion. And so you just think about the topic of your promotion. It doesn't matter that there's maybe no exchange of money. You're finding a way that your organization will profit from that promotion, and you're using content to create that profit. And the profit may not be money. It may be you get more animals adopted. So you can definitely use this approach for a nonprofit organization as well. So I know I told you all that I recommend you have a summary section in your content. I'm going to demonstrate what that looks like in the next section of this presentation. This is our summary. So this is what we covered. We talked about creating a schedule and also setting up an environment that supports you as a content creator. Your content is going to happen more naturally, and you'll have better content because you're not trying to do it in one marathon session. You're coming back to it several times over several days. And then I also talked to you about how to snap together content marketing that works. And that happens when you include all of these 7 essential elements that I went over. And then finally, the section that we just talked about was how to build profits with content marketing by mapping out your promotions to a calendar and then working backward and just creating content that builds anticipation and builds interest in whatever it is you're going to promote. I really think that now is your time to make content marketing work. I think it's a challenging time right now, but it's also a very special time that you could step forward and set yourself up so that your business is in a much better position once things open up and get back into gear again. You can set yourself up for content creation success, really, if you take some of these steps now. I want to show you how to use the 4-day content creation system. And I mentioned at the beginning that I have a free course. So this is a quote from a friend of mine, John Naster. He has a website and a podcast called Hack the Entrepreneur. And he said that he adopted the system that I teach, which is what I just taught you, the 4-day content creation system and the 7 essential elements of great content marketing. And he adopted that and started using it on his site, Hack the Entrepreneur. And the step-by-step system, according to him, completely changed the way he writes. And it enabled him to more than double his content output and increase his organic traffic by over 950%, which kind of blew me over when I read it. So I would love to send you more details about this. I do have this short course. And this is the URL where you can find it. It's bigbrandsystem.com/CC. CC stands for constant contact, CC-content. So bigbrandsystem.com/CC-content. And that's where you can sign up. I'll go into a little more detail about everything we went over today. If you weren't able to get your notes down fast enough, I would love to send it to you. And I think that Dave or somebody from the team is going to pop on and talk to you again about the small business support kit.
I'll hop back on, Pamela. I
Hey,
finally got my
Steph.
system back up and running.
Oh,
So,
great.
yeah. So, I believe Dave mentioned this slide, our small business support kit, to help you kind of manage the crisis and everything that's happening in today's world. We just wanted to put it back up on the screen here again, and I'll also go ahead and share it in the questions window as well. And that way, you can go ahead and just click on the link from there in order to get to the page and all of those really great resources that we've been putting together for you.
Great. And I see we have a bunch of really great questions, and I see your team has picked some of them out. So,
Yes.
do we want to go to the questions now? Do you want to do video, or should we stick with what we have that's working?
Let's stick with what what is working, because I've been having a couple of issues and I don't want to add another possible bandwidth issue to it.
I know.
Um, but we have hundreds of questions, I think, so we're going to try our best to answer as many as we can. So this first one here that I see is from James. He says, so how is the coronavirus affecting all of this content writing activity? Are opportunities up or down? My business is really flattened out dramatically.
I love this question, and I noticed that James actually added this question before we even got started. So I think it's on your mind, James. I think it's on everyone's mind right now. So the thing to keep in mind is that marketing is not about getting results right now. Marketing is something that you do now so that you can start to see the results in the future. So even though things aren't looking great right now, the work that you do now will help to put you in a better position in the future. So I recommend that you step up and apply some of what we went over today, because it's going to put you into a better position so that once things are back online and things are going again, your business will start to benefit from some of the work that you do now. Does that make sense, Stephanie?
I think that totally makes sense. And if you take a look at what a lot of organizations are doing, us at Constant Contact, it is an opportunity for you to help people or bring people together in a time of need and just show people that you're there for them in the content that you're putting out. So
Absolutely. Do you want me to just go through the questions, or do you want to share them?
let's go ahead and I'll just share them with you, and then we'll go through them one by one. So
Perfect.
how does that work in selling real estate? I don't want to sound insensitive.
Right. So I'm not sure how it would be insensitive. There are still people who need to buy real estate now. So I think that you can still use content marketing to draw traffic to your real estate firm. I'm not sure if Esther has a real estate firm, but I've seen real estate firms use content marketing to talk about the locations where they have real estate, maybe commercial or residential real estate, to talk about neighborhoods and cities and what happens in those cities and the kinds of businesses that are in those cities. So I think you can keep using content marketing. The insensitivity, honestly, this is what I want all of us to keep in mind when it comes to a moment like this. We all know as human beings when we're being insensitive, and it's when we're basically trying to take advantage of the fact that people are going through a tough time. But if what you are doing is going out there and trying to help people who are ready to move forward, even though not everyone is, you're not being insensitive. You're just being helpful to the people who need you. So, as long as you, honestly, if you're not out there hoarding food or toilet paper or medicines you don't need, I don't think you're insensitive.
I think that's a really good point. Thanks, Pamela. This next one actually came in from a whole bunch of people throughout the session, but what is the best day and time to publish content?
This is one of those questions that's very much it depends. And I like to ask people to step back and think about the people they're trying to reach and what their days are like, and what time of day they're going to have the most time to consume your content. Generally, I think it's best to publish in the morning, because that gives you the full day to promote your content. So on the day of publication, you publish in the morning, and then you have a whole day to promote your content. Personally, I avoid Mondays because people are overwhelmed on Monday. They're coming off the weekend and they're processing a lot of emails and they just have a lot going on. And I also avoid Fridays for the exact opposite reason, which is that people a lot of times on Fridays are kind of checked out. So just using common sense, I would say Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday might be best. But you might have a business that helps people to make weekend plans. Do you guys remember weekend plans when we used to be able to make weekend plans? So if that's your business where you're trying to help people make weekend plans, maybe Friday would make sense for you. So always start by thinking about who you want to reach and the kind of information that you're going to share with them.
Great point. That's all about really who you're publishing for in the first place. This next one comes from Jennifer and actually a bunch of others. Could you explain a little bit more what a subhead is?
Yes. Okay. So I showed that in the presentation. Hopefully you saw it. So a headline is at the top of the post. It's the name of your article or your podcast episode or your video. And then the subhead and a piece of written content, especially, you have seen them. They are like mini headlines that hit in the middle of content. And if we're thinking about these things in terms of an outline, they're basically a section of information, and they are at the top of that section explaining to people what they're going to find in that section. Does that make sense? Hopefully Jennifer and everyone else saw that in the presentation and saw what they look like.
Yeah, I think you explained it pretty good. You know, once a lot of those questions came in right before you were about to explain it. So
Right.
I just wanted to make sure we were touching on it again, just in case someone missed. This next one comes from Alice. Do we use content marketing for nonprofits, or do you have any suggestions for them?
I absolutely, and we talked about this toward the end of the presentation, I absolutely think you can use content marketing for nonprofits. It's actually a wonderful way to use content marketing because oftentimes nonprofit organizations have wonderful stories to tell. So your content can be telling the story of the people you help, the animals you help, the organizations you help, the entities you help, whatever it is. You can tell those stories with your content so that people who are contributing to your nonprofit can see what their efforts are going toward. So I think it's fantastic. And I think really if you're promoting a nonprofit with content marketing, you're lucky because you have more stories than the average person.
I really like that idea about the story, and I think that's so important for nonprofits. Let's look at this next one from Salaya. I hope that I said the name correctly. The process from content creation to revenue generation doesn't seem like a linear one. This can make it a little confusing, plus a hard sell for smaller companies that are new to content marketing. Any advice on these hurdles?
So I'm not 100% clear on what the hurdle is here, but what I can tell you, Salaya, is that it is not a switch that you can flip. There's no switch that you can say, okay, I'm going to flip this content switch and money is going to come in. It is a process that plays out over time. So like I showed you on the calendar, it's a process of raising awareness about a topic and sharing helpful information that establishes your authority, that makes you seem like a trustworthy resource. And that it does just take time. It's not necessarily linear. I mean, the internet is not linear, right? And this is happening on the internet. So the idea is it's more like you're putting out a net to try to get the right kind of fish to swim into it. And your content is kind of like bait that your specific kind of fish is attracted to. So I hope that helps. It's not linear and it's not automatic. It's more like a long game that you have to be willing to devote time to. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping people to do it right. Because if you do it right and you include those 7 elements that we talked about and you create really high quality content, you'll see better results than if you're just creating content for the sake of creating content.
Yes, definitely don't do that. I like to think about it, and we talk about it in a lot of our sessions, really think about the questions that people are asking you, and those types of things can be turned into great content because that helps in the search. If someone is searching for that question and you have answered that question in a blog post or something, that's certainly going to help you. So I see we're right at the top of the hour, and I've actually been talking with Pamela today since we have so many questions. We're going to stay on the line for several more minutes and try to bust through a couple more. If you have to leave, it's okay. You will be receiving the recording, usually by the end of today at the latest, but by the end of tomorrow if it takes longer for some reason. So keep an eye out for that. And we're going to try to answer more of these here.
We have some really juicy questions. There's some great ones.
Yes, so many. So how do you write a strong headline? Specifically, what makes a headline strong?
A strong headline gives people the benefit that they're going to receive by consuming the content clearly right in the headline. So I mentioned several times, it's like an ad for your piece of content. So you want to make sure that people understand what the ad is for. So that has to be 100% clear in your headline. I have 2 tips. If you struggle to write headlines, there are 2 types of headlines that almost always get attention. One is a headline that starts with how to. And I think the reason people love how to headlines is they're making a promise that you're going to learn something if you consume the content. So if you're struggling, try putting your topic in a how-to context. The other thing that you can try is what's called a list post. And that sounds like this: 7 tips to create content marketing faster. 7 ways to grow a vegetable garden when you're a beginner, something like that. So it's a number. You have a number at the beginning. And again, I think the reason people love those kinds of headlines is that they make a very specific, tangible promise that you're going to get something from consuming the content. So if you're struggling with headlines, try one of those 2. And I think you'll see that it'll come together and you'll get a headline that people will click on.
Good tips there. Now, this next one comes from Sarabi. How do you find a compelling topic to write about?
Well, you mentioned it, Stephanie, actually. It's fantastic to just look to see what questions your prospects and customers are asking, and then just go on to create content that answers those questions. So we had our example of the garden center. Somebody might be saying, a very typical vegetable garden item is a tomato. So the garden center might get a lot of questions from people about what's the best tomato variety and how should they plant it so that it doesn't, I've tried to grow tomatoes before, and a lot of times they get this disease that kind of makes them wilt. So maybe you write a piece of content around how to grow disease-proof tomatoes, even if you're a beginner, something like that. So you're looking at the questions that people are asking and answering those questions. And when you do that, your content is definitely going to be useful to the people you're trying to reach.
It sounds like I might need to read an article that sounds a lot like what you were just describing, Pamela.
I know. The garden tomatoes are so good, but they're finicky, aren't they?
Yes. Now, how many hours would you recommend that we typically dedicate to content creation during your 4-day system?
I love this question. Samantha asked it. Thank you, Samantha. So I think that you should be able to do most of these things in between half an hour and 45 and an hour, half an hour and an hour. However, the day that you're writing your first draft will probably take longer. It might be more like 90 minutes. And the other thing to keep in mind is if you do put yourself on a schedule where you're creating a new piece of content every single week, you're going to get faster. So things that may take you longer at first will be much shorter if you just stick with it and keep practicing. So that's my guideline, but it will probably take you longer at first and then less time as you go along.
Awesome. Now, this next one was interesting, and I think it's relating to SEO, but they said, isn't the quality of words important, not just the amount? And that was by Victoria.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing that by Lisa, but on mine anyway. I don't know, but the interesting thing about that question is that it's not just about throwing a certain number of words into your piece of content. It's really about making sure that you're serving people with useful, engaging, educational information. So absolutely, the quality of the words is super important. Otherwise, why would we do it?
You were right about Lisa. I was looking at the wrong line.
Oh, no, that's all right. That's okay. I just wanted to give her credit. That's a good question.
Yes, this one is from Victoria. How do you approach the timeline if you have several projects that you're working on?
Okay, Victoria, this is exactly the reason that I created the 4-day content creation system, because I had lots of projects. I had kids in high school during those early years, and they were, keeping me very busy as well. So if you're working on a lot of projects, when you break down this process over several days, you don't have to look for such a big block of time for creating your content. You can just do a little piece of it one day, another piece of it another day. What I recommend, actually, and we didn't really talk about this that much, I think I kind of went past it quickly, but you do really want to think about what time of day creative projects are easiest for you. So for me personally, I do my best, fastest, most creative writing directly after I've had my 2 cups of coffee in the morning. So I get a full night's rest. I haven't, used my brain much. It's very fresh, and then I caffeinate and I am good to go, and I get all sorts of writing done. So everyone has a time of day when they do their best, most creative work. Maybe you have young kids at home and your most creative work happens at night once they go to sleep. So what I'm asking you to do is to just notice it and do this 4-day content creation system during that most creative time, because you'll just work faster and you'll get better results.
Definitely. I saw a comment from someone in the questions window earlier that they get their ideas in the shower. And so maybe right after your shower, you sit down and go with your idea that you just came up with. So
I love
really
that.
like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's great.
Now, what sort of things or elements should be in your content to make it appeal to your audience? What are the do's and don'ts? And that's from Jan.
Right. So I would definitely recommend that you go back and look at those 7 essential elements, because that's why I developed them. You want to make sure you have compelling information. You sort of front load your content with compelling information that keeps people there consuming it. So your headline, your first sentence, your introduction. And then you want to make sure that the content is broken up in a way that it's easy to consume, that it's answering questions, that it is educating people, entertaining them to a certain extent. You also want to think about the other E word that I'd like to say is you want to empower people. So you want your content to give people information that they can act on, and where they come away from having consumed your content, they know something they didn't know before, they understand something they didn't understand before. Maybe they're just smiling and they weren't smiling before they hit your content. You want to empower them in some way.
Awesome. Now, next one comes from Samantha. If your company website doesn't have a blog, what's the best way to promote content to generate revenue? We use social media and email campaigns to direct traffic to specific product pages or our homepage on the website.
Yeah, I wonder why it doesn't have a blog. I would look into that, honestly. And one of the reasons, and we didn't talk about this at all, but one reason you might want to have a blog is it's a way that you can be consistently adding new information to your website. And your website will tend to appear higher in search engines if it is being updated with new content all the time. And that is exactly what a blog does for you. So I would look into it. Honestly, I would look into adding a blog, because you can definitely direct traffic to specific product pages or to your homepage, but those pages are static and they don't change. So after you've promoted them for a certain amount of time, people will get tired. Where if you do have a blog and you're updating and you're adding new and interesting content that helps people to really get to know your business, that's exciting to promote. That's something really interesting to promote. So I'd encourage you to think about it.
I have to agree. One of the most important reasons to have a blog is so that you can get found better in search and all those good things you were talking about. This next one comes from Evelyn. Our content usually takes up 2 paragraphs. Is there such a thing as being too short on content?
Yes, there is. Evelyn, the thing about that is search engines actually will penalize you if your content is too short. They consider it to be low value when it's too short. So at a bare minimum, you want to try to hit about 800 words. That number is always varying, but I would say you are safe if you can hit 800 words. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, if you add in these 7 sections that I went over today, if you have an introduction section and you have all these subheads and you've divided your content into different sections and you're writing some copy under each of your subheads, and then you summarize it and you add a call to action, just doing that will flesh out your content and make it longer. So I definitely recommend that you look at those 7 essential elements and make sure they are all there. And just adding those will probably help your content to be longer. But you do also want to make sure that you develop your ideas to the extent that people spend time with your content and they come away feeling like they have learned something new. And that is hard to do in 300 or 400 words. You want to make it long enough that people are like, yes, okay, I got something out of this.
Completely agree. This next one comes from Anne, and I'm kind of along the same lines of Anne, so it speaks to me. I still feel like this involves a lot of writing. If you're not necessarily a strong writer, how do you approach this? I don't love to write.
Oh, Anne, I am so glad you asked this question. I have an answer for you, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So a lot of people who I meet who feel like they are not strong writers are good talkers. So for example, they may have a hard time sitting down and expressing themselves in written words, but they have no trouble on a phone call and they have no trouble talking to someone about their ideas. So if that is you, and I'm hoping it is, what I recommend is that you grab your phone and you look for an app that allows you to record and you just go for a walk and you pretend you're talking to someone on a phone call, but instead of talking to them on the phone call, you talk through your piece of content and you record it. And then there are lots of services that will take your recorded audio and translate it into words that you can then kind of put into these 7 essential elements and make into a piece of written content. So that's what I recommend to you, is that you just talk it out to see if that helps to get the words flowing. What do you think, Stephanie? Could that be helpful for you too?
I think that could definitely be helpful. Yes. Awesome for me and hopefully a few others here in the group today. Let's try to tackle a few more of these questions before we log off. Sandy asks, if people aren't sharing or commenting, reacting to the call to action, does that mean the content isn't good enough?
Not necessarily. There aren't as many comments on blog posts, for example, as there used to be. I think with the rise of social media, a lot of the commenting is happening off-site on social media platforms. So Sandy, for example, you may have created a piece of content and then you share it on a social media platform, and maybe people actually comment on it there instead of going back to your website and adding their comments. So don't take it personally. I think you can look at it holistically. So for example, maybe you aren't getting a lot of comments, but maybe people are sharing it. So then, and if people are signing up for whatever you want them to sign up for, that's another way to sort of gauge the effectiveness of your content. Not every piece of content you create is going to be a home run. A lot of times you have a base hit, and a lot of times you swing your bat and you don't get anywhere, right? And that's okay. The idea is that you are creating a body of work. Some of those pieces will be stronger and they may generate a ton of traffic to your site. And then some of the pieces you can just look at them and say, well, I practiced. I practiced creating content. And I'll take that practice and put it into the next piece of content.
Awesome, good point. Now, this next one goes back to our nonprofit conversation is from Beth. I'm having the task to ask donors for funds from our nonprofit, most of them baby boomers. Also, I need to break into the millennial mind to become donors. Do you have any tips with content there?
Actually, my tip for Beth would be to see if you can speak directly to some of the people who are representative of the types of audiences you want to reach. And actually, this might be a really good time to do it because we're all stuck at home. So maybe you reach out to, let's say, 5 or 10 people who represent that baby boomer audience that you're trying to reach. And you just ask them if you could have a 10-minute phone call with them. And then this is basically a focus group. What you want to do is come up with some questions and ask everyone the same questions. So ask them, what are your challenges? Ask them what their thoughts are about your organization, what they love about the way you communicate, what they would like to see. Ask them a lot of open-ended questions so that you can just see how they answer. And I'm just nerdy enough that I would keep a spreadsheet and start typing their answers into the spreadsheet. And over time, you may see some patterns to what people want, what they're looking for, and what they're confused about. Same thing with your millennials. See if you can find a few people that you can talk to directly and find out what's on their minds.
Definitely love that idea as well. So much information coming from you today, Pamela. So thank you. How would we use the PS method in a fundraising environment? Would it come off as spammy on email, or should this be directed through posts or an online blog? And that's from Jennifer.
Right. So we talked about this a little bit during the presentation. I think that planning your content and your promotions and then seeding with information that refers back to the promotion topic is not spammy. It's actually helpful. I think you can do it with posts. You can do it on social media and email marketing like we talked about. I showed you how you can make all of those things work together kind of organically to support each other. The idea is to take the time to do that planning in advance. So I don't know what your nonprofit is, Jennifer. We had somebody on earlier that was doing work for an animal shelter. So let's say you have a fundraising event for your animal shelter coming up in May. So then you work backwards and you say, coming up, in April, the whole month of April, I'm going to post content about what we do that's different at our shelter, how we treat our animals, what we're doing in this current environment to help our animals, all of those things that kind of create awareness around the work that you do. That's not spammy. That's just information, and it's helping people to engage in your organization. And the idea is that you are planting those seeds well in advance so that when it comes time to actually ask them to donate, you have basically made your case to them over time. Does that make sense, Stephanie?
I definitely agree, and it all comes back to like being helpful and sharing the information or those stories that you were talking about a little bit earlier. So,
right.
All right, let's try to tackle 2 more before we log off. So this next one is from Ella. Do you recommend posting the exact same day every week, or would a falling schedule be more effective?
I'm not sure what a falling schedule is, to be honest, but I'm thinking that's varied, like a varied schedule where you vary your days. So. Yeah. So I recommend the same day every week. I think there's something to be said for how much easier it makes your life because, like I said, you can leverage your own calendar. So on Monday, you're doing this thing. On Tuesday, you're doing that thing. And if it's Wednesday, you must be doing this other thing. And you're doing it on the same day and at the same time every week. So I think there's something to be said for that. Also, publishing on the same day just kind of makes you look reliable to your audience. They may not even notice, but if you're just showing up the same day, week after week, it just looks reliable. So I recommend doing it on the same day if you can.
We recommend the same thing for sending an email just because of that reliability. So good point. Okay, last one we're going to cover from Karen. When you say emails, are you talking about using our email list in Constant Contact to send emails, using the Constant Contact news list to promote our bigger e-newsletter, which we only publish once a month?
So I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but this is what I'm going to imagine. I'm imagining that Karen has an email newsletter that she sends once a month, and she's trying to figure out how to work her blog post content into that, right?
I think so.
Right. So one thing you could do is in your monthly newsletter, you could have a link to, let's say you started to publish once a week. So in your email newsletter, you have a section that talks about new on the blog this month, or new on the blog, and you just have the headline and maybe a 1 or 2 sentence description of that piece of content, and then a link. And you do that for every new piece of content. Personally, and I don't know how you feel about this, Stephanie, but I recommend that you try emailing a little bit more often than just once a month. I'm thinking about my own inbox and how much email I get all the time. And if somebody only reaches out once a month, it's hard for me to even remember them. So if you have a way that you can show up with valuable content, maybe just twice a month. And maybe one of those emails is only about your blog post content, and then the other one is your traditional newsletter. That could be a way to think about it.
Yeah, usually we say, and it does vary by organization, is depending on if you can do twice a month, send that way you do have that reliability. And also you're being a little bit more frequent so they don't forget about you and who you are and how you can really help them. Or, if you are a nonprofit, you might be able to, let them know about your fundraiser and any donations that you're looking for or how they can help during a specific time. So,
Right. Now, and I think the other thing that happens is when you only email once a month, those emails end up being really long, and people open them up and they just look like work. They look at this long email and think that looks like a lot of work to get through. And so maybe they never read it. Where if you email more often, you can send shorter email messages, and you might have a better chance of people actually looking at them and clicking on them.
completely agree. All right, so I know we're far past the top of the hour, and I know we have a lot more questions. We're gonna do a couple of things over the next couple of days and see if we can answer some more. So look for some resources that'll be in the follow-up email, hopefully by the end of today, but at the end of tomorrow at the very latest. And of course, these questions that we just talked about with Pamela and I, they are recorded in there as well. So if you need to go back and catch some questions. I want to thank you all so much for attending our webinar. Pamela, I want to thank you so much for providing all of this wonderful insight to our audience.
You have such a great group. I love talking to the Constant Contact audience. The questions are always amazing, and I just love presenting. So thank you to everyone who is here. And if you are listening to this and you've watched all the way to the end, thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.